Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to another video. You're back with T-Tac Living, and it's a super blessed day, super nice day, a little cold, but if you're tuning into today's video, count yourself blessed because I am gonna drop some info and hopefully everybody gets some insight. But first and foremost, the whole reason I'm making this video is because I have been building rods for the past 2 to 3 years, and I've built over 40 rods, whether that was for myself, family, or friends. And some of the issues that I've ran into is figuring out what setups and what rods to pair up with what reels and how to get the sensitivity, what guides to go with. So today I am dropping some info bombs so that you guys may leave with some more understanding or may have more comfort when going to buy a new setup or getting a custom rod built for yourself. So let's go ahead and jump into it. I have 4 different rods here. These are primarily gonna be rods that I'm fishing either inlets, spillways, dams, piers, bridges, catwalks, and that's just the type of fishing that I do. I've got these paired up with my custom swim baits here, so that's what I'm gonna be testing with today. But I have a Rainshadow 966 with a Van Staal 100, 20-pound braid. Now this Rainshadow 966 is rated for 15 to 25 pound line, and then as far as the lure rating, it's rated for 1 to 3 ounce. And what I've figured out is this thing throws a 1.5 ounce bait the best. So first and foremost, the biggest tip I'm going to give you today is make sure that if you're buying a blank with the line rating and it's 15 to 25, try to either go with the low number, the high number, or sit somewhere in between. I've figured that with a rod that has a line rating 15 to 25, I'm throwing 20 and it throws great. Another thing I'll say is guides. When you're going with a rod and you want sensitivity, you want distance, whatever it may be, what I've learned, here's another tip, is that the air guides cast the best out of all guides that I've personally tried. Now that's my own opinion, but I do use braid, and I only use braid. I stick to braid, but that's first and foremost the couple tips that I have for you when it comes to buying a setup that's sensitive, that casts far. This setup right here is by far one of the fish killers that I have used over the past 8 years, and I have caught a lot of fish on this setup. But what I've learned is throwing a 1.5 to a 2 ounce jig on this setup, it really excels, and you succeed when you throw the proper line with the proper bait and go with the proper guides. The next setup I have here is a Zeebaas ZX22. This is paired up with a 1087 with Fuji guides. Of course, you see the aluminum reel seat on here, and then I've got a 4-inch cork, and then I've got a split butt cork with another 4-inch cork on the back. Now, one thing I've learned about the reel seats is not only does it get cold in the winter, but you also lose a little bit of sensitivity. This reel seat, you can see, has the insert in there, so you're gonna maximize a little more sensitivity with that. But when you go with a graphite reel seat, you tend to have more sensitivity because it's a lighter reel seat. It's closer to the blank. As far as the guides, this is another tip I'll give you, is Fuji guides look good. I personally think they look better than air guides. However, you're gonna lose casting distance. That's all the way across the board. I'd say Fuji is definitely not the go-to guide if you're wanting to get far casting distance. And for me, I've learned that I've built a lot with Fuji guides. However, I personally like air guides, and that's what I build most of my rods with. This is paired up with 30-pound braid. This blank, I believe, is rated for 15 to 25. If I had that 20-pound braid, or if I could find 25-pound braid, probably cast a lot better and have a little more sensitivity. Another thing I'll say about Fuji guides is if you are gonna be using Fuji guides, it's much better when you're slow rolling a bait and doing less jigging. Now, if you're slow rolling a bait, these are the guides to go with, and it does work. But when you're adding that action and jigging a lot, the air guides may be your go-to guides. The next setup I have here is my all-time favorite. This is one that has been into the arsenal. It graduated into my arsenal last year, and by far has been my go-to setup. I'm gonna leave a video right now, and this video right here is the first Rainshadow 967 that I built. Super happy. Caught 3 fish first time using it, but fell and broke the rod. So check out this clip. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. Ugh. Oh my. Ow. Oh. I'm telling you, they're indestructible, homie. Oh no, it broke.
It did?
Yeah.
Damn.
Now, getting back into this setup, this is a Van Staal VR 125. This is paired up with 20-pound braid. And then, of course, you got the Rainshadow 967. This is a fundamental setup if you're going to be fishing spillways, inlets, dams. Not necessarily the pier, but definitely a good pier rod. And if you're fishing jetties, somewhere where you need that sensitivity, you're jigging. Also on a slow roll. I can slow roll baits with this rod and I can catch a lot of fish. One thing I'll say about this rod is I have double foot air guides, and that is a big step up from going with Fuji. If I were to build this rod with Fuji guides, I would lose distance and probably lose a lot of sensitivity when I'm jigging or when I'm slow sweeping bottom. Now, as far as the long butt, I believe that the long butt just sticks up under my arm perfectly fine. It keeps the rod balanced. But aside from that, this has a graphite reel seat, which increased sensitivity for me. And I have noticed that this has been my top favorite rod that I have built yet. I've caught more fish on this rod than I've caught on most rods. Every time I go on a trip, this is the one that I'm picking up. This is the one that I'm standing by. And what I've learned is this rod throws a 2.5 to 3 ounce. The best, I can get a 3 ounce out there with very little problems. I can get a 2.5 and whip it as hard as I can and get it precisely where I want to get it. Now, I'm trying to go through this video giving you guys information that you can take and use it for the future while keeping the video short. This is the next rod. I'm not going to put a reel on it, but if I were to pair up a reel with this rod, this is a Rainshadow 1088. It's pretty stiff, but it's got the sensitivity that you need, especially paired up with the air guides. But if I were to pair a reel up with this, I'm going to be looking at going with a Van Staal 200, something in that 7,000 to 10,000 range, just because it's a thick rod. And looking at this rod, this has a triangle dremeled out reel seat here. I like this reel seat, however, it's a size 20, and what I've learned is you really have to squeeze the reels in there depending on the seat of the reel that you're using. But fundamentally, this is a beautiful rod when it comes to fishing bridges, comes to fishing piers, and it comes to pulling on big fish like tarpon, snook, striped bass. But this is my go-to tarpon slayer. This is what I catch tarpon on when I go. Probably going to be one of the main rods that I use for it. And then just some small details. If you want to go for sensitivity, you might want to think about what kind of foregrip you're going with, whether that's cork, EVA, or shrink wrap. What I've learned is when I use shrink wrap, it's a little less space in my hand, so I have that more sensitivity and I can feel it. However, there's sometimes where I want that cork to a certain shape where it fits perfect. If I'm going for a rod that I'm going to be casting a lot, of course I want to keep it light, graphite reel seat, and maybe shrink wrap with cork underneath, keeping it light, justifiable, and able to just cast. And another thing, you guys see that I'm using all manual reels. That's a personal option for me. I like manual reels because most of the places I'm fishing, I'm going to be putting it right back on the roller. For you guys watching out there, you don't have to use manual reels for custom rods. That might be a misconception that people think, oh, I got a custom rod, I need a Van Staal, I need a Zeebaas, I need a Visser. That is not the case. You can use any reel that you want. I would say that if you're going to be pairing a reel up with a rod, you really need to look at the line rating. You need to look at the size of the reel, and you need to look at the size of the rod, and that is going to help you in the future pick out the best setup for you, so that hopefully in the future you can find the best setup that's going to fit your needs, that you can fish with comfortably and catch more fish. At the end of the day, it's all about catching more fish and having something that feels better in your hand. So now that we've got to the information part of this video, I hope that you guys got some information. But now I'm actually going to do some testing and show you guys how I'm whipping these rods and how they cast with just the medium-sized range bait that this rod is rated for. So first setup, we're going to be going with Van Staal 100 with the Rainshadow 966 with a, I believe this is a 2.5 ounce bait. Really could go for 2, but you can see here that I'm whipping that thing out there. Now, with this rod, when I'm whipping that 2 ounce bait, I believe that it's not heavy, but I'm having to use a little more energy to guide that bait to where it needs to go. And so my opinion about using whether it's a 2 ounce or a 2.5 ounce bait on this rod, you absolutely want to stick in the middle range, and that's what you're going to throw the best. So if I was throwing exactly a 1.5 ounce on this rod, chances are is I'm going to have more control of where that bait goes, and I'm going to be able to do it more consistently. So it's a check for this rod. Now, if you're looking to pick up a rod with a 1 to 3 ounce, this one specifically has a whippy tip on it. So if you're fishing for fish that are going to be driving in when you hook them, chances are this rod might not be for you, or any rod in this class range, because it does have that whippy tip. The next setup is the Rainshadow 967, and you guys probably notice, man, you use a lot of Rainshadow. I use Rainshadow because it's the easiest to find. I've never had problems with them other than when I fell on the rod, but that's inevitable. You got to expect something to happen when you fall directly on a rod. But the Rainshadow 967, like I said, my favorite rod to date. Caught a lot of fish on this rod, very sensitive, cast well. It's got the air guides. So let's look at the difference here. I'm using a 2 ounce bait on this one. This is rated a 1 to 4. Let's watch the distance. And I'm barely gonna throw this out there, and I guarantee you I get more distance than the Rainshadow 966. So probably got about 10 more yards and barely casted this setup. This one right here all day long checks all the boxes. Sensitivity, light in the hand, cast well, and very little effort goes into casting where I want to get it. Last but not least, the Zeebaas ZX22 on the 1087 with Fuji guides with a 2 ounce jig. That's right in the middle of the range for the bait rating for this rod. And I'm going to show you guys, the Fuji guides are going to restrict the distance that I get, and I'm gonna have to put a lot more effort in controlling where that bait goes, but let's just check it out. You see I put a lot more effort, got it about as far as the 967. However, this is a 9-foot rod. The Rainshadow 967 is an 8-foot rod, so you really gotta weigh out your options. If I had air guides on this setup, chances that I would have got farther are much higher. Okay guys, the conclusion of today's video was testing out these rods and giving some information. And when it comes to picking out a rod, really look at the fine details. Look at the bait rating, look at the line rating, and go ahead and get yourself prepped up for what reel. Do some research and look up what reels fit best on those particular blanks or those particular rods. I'm not saying you need a custom rod. I'm not saying that you need to go buy a cheap rod, but what I am saying is if you're gonna spend money on something, you wanna make sure that it checks all your boxes, not someone else's. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you found some insight through this video. If you did, leave a comment, leave a like, and if you had any disagreements, like I said, I'm still working on my craft. I'm still building rods to this day that fit my hand better than the 967. So if you have any thoughts, leave it in the comments. If you like this particular kind of content, leave a comment and say, yes, do more of this. But I hope you guys enjoyed. Stay safe, stay blessed, continue to let that drag sing, and I will see you guys on the next one.